Hello friends, welcome to the channel The Seated Scribe, and I am Rudrashish Dotto. For today, we have a review unboxing combo of the same brand Kaweco, a German pen major since 1883. The pens for today's video are a 1-year-old Kaweco Brass Sport in extra fine nib and unboxings of the same pen model in fine and medium. The purpose is to compare the extra fine, fine and medium versions of the same pen type to arrive at a one pen choice scenario for most writing conditions. So, without any further delay, let us flick the camera and go to the pens. Now, this is the extra fine nib version which I have been using for the past year. I will come to this pen a bit later. First, let me go to the unboxing of the two other nib versions. Now, Kaweco pens are small pens, I mean the Kaweco Sport versions. They usually come in these wonderful boxes, metal boxes, which reminds me of my geometry box in my school life. Now, once we open it, we find there are manuals and a warranty card. Let me keep it aside, and this is the pen. This is the fine nibbed version. This is the fine nibbed version. The clip does not come with the pen. This is an optional thing and we can purchase it separately, and we can put it in case if we wish to carry this pen in our pockets. So, this is the fine nib version, and the medium nib version is this. The boxes are pretty similar. This is the medium nib version. Since I usually carry my pens in my pocket, so I have opted for the clips to help me secure them. Now, the pen models, as we can see, they are made of brass. The nib is a steel nib. This is the fine nib version. The entire section is made of brass. Though we have Kaweco converters, but the pens usually come in these small cartridges which can be reused if one can fill this cartridge with either an eyedropper with a narrow mouth or an injection syringe. So, let me fit this in because the ink will take some time to travel from this section to the nib, and let me look at the pen as such. The gripping section of this pen has a slightly concave shape. It is wider at this end, it slightly tapers down and then widens to the screws, and then there is a slight step down in this part. This section will help the pen to post very securely, because this is a very small pen and most of the users of this pen would require a posting so as to write comfortably. Now, in the brass section or in the cap section, we have Kaweco Brass Sport with Germany written here. This is a clip that holds pretty securely in this part, and let me keep it posted. This is also the similar bodied pen with a medium nib. I have put in this cartridge to test how it works. And so this is it. These are the pens. These sections are made of solid brass and the pens are fairly heavy. To put in the weight value of these pens, let me see how much it weighs. Well, it weighs 47 grams. Minus the cap, the pen weighs 27. So, the cap weighs 20 grams. This is pretty similar for all the three versions. So, let me keep it aside and look at this finial. This finial is a wonderfully designed and classically designed logo of Kaweco, Kaweco. This is snugly fit, so we can't take it out, and this section is slightly tapered, and here we have the two pens. Now, an interesting part of brass pens is that they usually develop some patina with use. This is the extra fine version which I have been using for the past year, and we can clearly see how the texture of the pen has changed from the unboxed ones. So, these raw brass items do tend to develop a color and a flair of its own, which perhaps lends this pen some charm. So, let me see whether the ink has traveled to the nib, so that we can go for writing samples. Kaweco Brass Sport is a pocket pen. Let us now go for some size comparisons with other usually used pens. This is the Luxor High-Tech Point. This is a routine CD marker. This is the V7. This is the closed version of Kaweco Brass Sport. So, it is fairly shorter, but when posted, this pen takes the same size as the other routine pens that we use. Unposted, it is this. So, this is it with regard to size comparisons. Definitely these pens are small pens, but they are meant to be used posted under usual writing circumstances. Okay, let me begin with the extra fine version of Kaweco Brass Sport. This is the typical 100 GSM paper, and the ink used is the cartridge ink supplied by Kaweco. Well, there is a definite feedback. It is wet, but not as wet as the upstrokes are slightly finer there is a slight flex in the nib which perhaps makes the slant finer than the upstrokes or the downstrokes. Yes, there is a slight flex in the nib. So, this is the extra fine version of Kaweco Brass Sport. Now, we go to the fine version, which is supposed to be 0.1 millimeter thicker than the extra fine. Well, the feedback that I got with the extra fine nib is gone here. There is no feedback whatsoever and the writing is very smooth. It is definitely wet, as we will see. Yes, it is wetter than the extra fine. The upstrokes are equal in thickness to the downstrokes, so are the slant strokes. They are all very wet. The same flex exists, but this time around the slant strokes and the up and down strokes, they appear to be pretty similar in thickness. So, this is the fine nib version of Kaweco Sport. And now, the medium nib version. Thicker than the fine. Well, it is definitely more wet than the fine. Yes, but the writing experience is pretty smooth with no feedback whatsoever. Well, the same flex experience is there in the medium nib as well, but as with the fine, the thickness of the slant strokes and the up and down strokes are pretty much similar. So, these nibs won't give a writer that typical calligraphy experience of width variations in letters. So, this is it. The Kaweco Brass Sport has been around since 1971. It is perhaps one of the most popular pocket pens around, and though it is slightly on the heavier side and it posts very securely, there are people who tend to believe that once posted, the weight of the pen is slightly thrown backwards, and that sometimes stresses fingers if the writing is prolonged. But otherwise, this is a pen which is fairly solid. There is an issue with these pens which I would like to point out now. In the version that I have been using for the past year, as we will see, this pen typically opens in half a rotation. So, well, this pen is made of solid brass, it can be thrown around, but if it is subject to repetitive movements, only half a rotation is enough for this part to get away from this part. So, it is a pen which can prove to be a nuisance in conditions where movement is repetitive and somehow the turn is not tight enough to seal this section sturdily. Half a rotation is the minimum that I have come across with regard to pens which are screwed with the caps. So, this is one caution which pen users may have to exercise if they use the Kaweco Brass Sport. Otherwise, it is a pen which is there to stand with the writer for decades, and my pen, which I have been using for the past year almost as a daily writer, has been serving my needs pretty well in both good as well as not so good writing conditions such as ordinary paper. So, this is all that I have time for this week, friends. Next week we will be back with another review and another unboxing. Thank you.